City of Petoskey City Council meeting for October 2nd, 2023. I ask that you rise with me for the Pledge of Allegiance to the United States flag. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Just checking it out. City Clerk Beck, would you please call roll?
Demore, present. Shields,
Here.
Wagner,
Here.
Walker, present. Murphy.
Present. We have a quorum. Next is the proclamation on domestic abuse awareness as requested by the Women's Resource Center. I always feel honored to read this. Having worked in schools for 42 years, worked in the Department of Corrections and 5 prisons for 9 years. I think it's very important. It's a problem throughout the country, throughout not just the country, the state, but also probably somewhat in the city. Whereas domestic violence abuse perpetrators intentionally use a pattern of physical, emotional, sexual, psychological, and/or economic coercion and abuse to control their intimate partners, violating their dignity, security, and both psychological and physical well-being. And whereas domestic violence perpetrators cause significant and long-lasting trauma to countless individuals and families. And whereas when children are involved, domestic abuse perpetrators' choices to be violent and abusive are parenting choices that often has devastating and far-reaching adverse effects on the safety and well-being of our children and their non-offending parent. Whereas in 2021, Michigan State Police Incident Crime Report indicates there were 70,564 domestic violent offenses committed by current or former intimate partners reported to Michigan law enforcement during this last year, 70,000. Whereas survivors of domestic abuse are present in every Michigan community, regardless of sexual orientation, race, religion, ability, age, and gender identity. And whereas domestic abuse can be prevented through the collective voice and power of individuals, families, institutions, and systems working together toward this common goal. Whereas Domestic Abuse Awareness Month provides an opportunity for the community members to learn more about preventing domestic abuse and to show support for organizations and individuals who provide critical advocacy, services, and assistance to the victims. Therefore, be it resolved that I, John Murphy, Mayor of Petoskey, on behalf of all of its residents and City Council, do proclaim October 2023 as a Domestic Abuse Awareness Month. Please remember to be a good listening ear to somebody that may have that issue in their family. Could be your children, could be a grandparent. It could be just about anybody in your community and neighbors. So make sure and be supportive of it when the support is needed. Next is a public hearing. And it's the receipt of comments on the establishment of an obsolete property rehabilitation act, which is called OPRA, district for 432 East Lake Street. I'm going to ask if there are any public comments at this point that people wish to express. Council, do you have anything? No. To the public, if you do, please step up to the mic, hit it so it turns green. Give me your full name, full address, and you'll have some time to speak to council regarding this issue. I see there's nobody online as well. So I'm going to close the public hearing. And now I'm in receipt of comments on the Obsolete Property Rehabilitation Act, OPRA, exempt certificate application received from Wine Guys Holdings, LLC, for 432 East Lake Street. I'm asking if there's anyone who wishes to make comment on that. Council? Does the public wish to express anything? Then I don't think we even have a motion on that, do we? No. So
It's down here.
it's coming up for new business. Usually we've kind of jumped them up. Can we jump it up? Let's jump it up. Gonna take that thing of new business and I'm gonna move it forward right now and take care of it. We had individuals that were involved with this that waited almost 2.5 hours last meeting. It was on the agenda. I feel it's important for us to be considerate of their time as well as everybody else's. So I'd like to take new business, the adoption of a proposed resolution that would establish an Oprah district for 432 East Lake Street. And I'm taking it to City Council for discussion, possible motion. Mr. Moore.
So I just had a couple of questions.
Please.
First of all, this one's probably for City Manager Horn. It looks like the value of the exemption is just under $50,000. Does that seem right to you?
Yes, that's correct. It's the annual tax exemption is just under $4,100 a year, and multiplying that out 12 years is just under 49,000.
And then my second question is, I went back and visited Exhibit C of the development agreement. And I see there that at least 51% of the units are to be affordable pursuant, limited by HUD's fair market rents. So that would be 3 of what I understand to be 5 units here. Do we know, I know back in March, there were discussions about what the other 2 units would be, but I'm just wondering on the record if we know what that is. I know Mr. Keaty, Mrs.
I'm
Keaty.
sure it'd be market rate.
Yeah, he'll be required, the owners will be required to have 3 of the 5 meet the HUD requirements. As I mentioned at the last meeting, just the way that those units will be constructed, the size of the units, the parking concerns, being over a working established restaurant and bar, you know, the rents are going to be essentially in line with what he can get, you know, pending all those, you know, circumstances that are driving that. But 3 of the 5 would have to follow HUD guidelines. Yes.
Other questions?
Yeah, and then are they all intended to be year-round units and no short-term rentals?
Yes, they are intended for year-round units, and you know, the owners have made that case or made that known that they have no interest in getting into short-term rental, a short-term rental business at that location.
Thank you.
I believe what they're used for, I know they're looking at the difficulty of finding employees that are have the ability to be close and also to work there. So I'm sure that that is one of the purposes of why they're doing this, is to enhance their ability to hire employees. I think it's a great plan. Council, do you have any other comments? Mr. Shields.
I just want to thank the owners for taking this on, and you know, not an easy process, but this is going to enhance our community. So thank you.
Mr. Moore.
I'm happy to make a motion to move this forward.
I'll second the motion, Mayor.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussion, council? Does the public wish to express any concerns or comments regarding this? If they are, push the button for green.
There we go. Nikki Devitt, 616 Jennings Avenue. And I just want to kind of echo what Councilman Shields said, and that is that the sheer lift that these wonderful business owners have taken on part of their staff and their community over the last couple of years has been incredible. And I appreciate council seeing that, and I appreciate the city working with them to make sure that this is a possibility in our community. So thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. Anyone else wish to speak to council regarding this matter? There being none, I go to City Clerk Beck for roll. Is there somebody online?
No, I apologize. My memo was not correct. I did receive one written letter of support that I did not include in my memo. We did pass that out to you, so you have that in front of you.
I can read it if you wish.
It's up to you.
Public, to whom it may concern upon reviewing the above notice, I would like to express my view on the above request. Haggard's Plumbing and Heating is not opposed to the changes of the property and at the request, if the property owner is fortunate enough to have the ability and resources at this time to either build or to improve their existing property, it would only help the economy continue to grow. It would be a local positive for the local, county, and state to do all we can to improve and promote in any way possible. It's John Haggard from Charlevoix. You have that in your packet? You got it? Good. I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker. Yes. Excuse me, brain fart. Demore, Baker, Shields,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes, motion passes 5-0. Again, we're very happy to be proactive in development, especially downtown. Thank you for your ingenuity. I don't know how long has that been vacant upstairs from housing. So,
Yeah, the back part, yeah.
yeah, so almost 100 years. Hey, we're moving forward. Okay, now we're gonna go to the consent agenda.
You gotta do the other one. There's two.
Oh geez, there's a second one. Okay. Adoption of a proposed resolution that would support an Oprah exemption certificate application for 432 East Lake Street. I take it to council for possible motion or discussion.
So moved.
Support. A motion from Mr. Shields, a second from who said that? Wagner. Mr. Wagner. Any other discussion, council? Public wish to weigh in? I go to Ms. Beck for roll.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Demore,
Aye.
Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Now, second congratulations. Thank you for the ingenuity, the thought. It does nothing but enhances our downtown. Next is the consent agenda, and it's adoption of a proposed resolution that would confirm approval of the following. September 18th, 2023 regular session city council meeting, as well as minutes from the closed session city council meeting minutes. As well as acknowledge the receipt of certain transactions that have occurred since September 18th, 2023, and I think it's a city council for discussion or possible motion. Questions? No questions?
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore, and I have a second from Mr. Shields. I go to city clerk Beck for roll.
Demore.
Aye.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Now we come to the part on the agenda.
Can you hand the
Here,
minutes
the
down?
closed session minute.
Yeah, close enough for a minute, please.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, okay. It's scribbled. Next, we go to public
I'm
comment.
sorry.
This is your opportunity to take the mic, come up in front, give us your full name, full address. If you have an issue that is not on the agenda, if at all possible, you can wait. I'd like to offer you the opportunity to speak to council, pro, con, whatever it is that you have that you wish to discuss. For a comment, is there anybody who wants to speak to council? Sure. There you go.
Technology, don't you love it? Chris Carey, 414 Wakazoo. I'm just curious if the city council is going to set another meeting to discuss and go over the short-term rental agenda. I know that
We're in closed session. I don't know, excuse me, we're scheduling a special session where we will be meeting on this. It probably will, I don't think it'll be in the agenda for the city council meeting. It'll be another evening or at 6 o'clock, but we're hoping to cover that at that point, where it would be then brought back to city council for a reading and a motion. Do you wish to weigh in at this point?
No, I'm just curious if that was something that was going to run a discussion, because I know the last meeting got canceled, so.
Well, yes, we pushed it back because of some other
Okay.
meeting stuff.
Just curious. Thank you very much.
We
Appreciate
will
it.
be doing it. Sarah, you got name and address? Yeah, okay, thank you. Any other public comment? No? Okay, we're gonna move to city manager's update, and for that, I'm turning it over to city manager Shane Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. As this is our first meeting of the month, I want to highlight some staff on birthdays and work anniversaries for the month of October. October birthdays, our very own Mike Robbins, October 5, Nicole Stradling in Finance Department, Larry Donovan, Public Safety, Rob Eichler, Electric, Mary Holbein in the library, Chad Bradley, Water and Wastewater, and Fred Helk in Public Safety are all celebrating staff birthdays for the month of October. Similarly, work anniversaries this month, Eric Hoig, Public Safety, Ben Carlson, Public Safety, 17 years, Eric was 6 years, Pat Costello, Public Works, 21 years, and Dave Schmidt, Public Safety Lieutenant, 22 years with the city for the month of October, this month. Few things, a few of you have participated in our kind of town hall discussion on non-motorized transportation. We're trying to get input and feedback for the North Region Active Transportation Plan. This was coordinated through Networks Northwest. I do have a link or a link to a survey that's active right now that folks can participate and give their opinions and feedback on. We will put this on our social media as well and help push this out to our residents for people to participate. We didn't get a great turnout. I think we had maybe a dozen folks that came in through the hour-and-a-half session. But certainly we want people to participate, voice their feedback on areas that we can improve on in our region for non-motorized transportation options. Also had, I mentioned this at our last meeting, we did have our walk through our first kickoff meeting for the Wheelway Slope Restoration Project. So you can see where we have currently installed monitoring wells. So I believe there's 7 monitoring wells. They did 2 wells when they were here on the 18th and 19th, right on the trail in the failed section of the trail. So the nice thing about all this data, we'll be able to collect this data throughout several different seasons and weigh out how that groundwater is moving through this area and how it impacts the ultimate, concepts that we put together for input on how we rebuild this trail section. Sarah, hopefully this works, but I wanted to show you the aerials. They use their drone. I think it's kind of fascinating to be able to watch this. Maybe it won't work. Is it this? Yeah, there you can you expand it all the way? So this will kind of give you a kind of a bird's eye view of the couple of locations where the wheelway has collapsed. There's no sound to it, but you can obviously figure out that's kind of us watching him at that point.
Waving.
Yeah.
This is recent.
Yeah, this was the 18th and 19th of September. So you can see there's an area there that has taken part of the trail. Coming up on another failed section. I think this is the big main section that failed. You can see the overlook there. So obviously they'll continue to fly. They'll fly again once the leaves are off the trees and kind of show a different viewpoint. But so they're still in data gathering mode. That's probably fine, Sarah. Still in data gathering mode. We have bi-weekly meetings with the engineer and their team, analyzing, obviously the data, putting some concepts. They'll be working on concepts, and permitting will be a long process, as we all know. So we'll start that process as well. But I think we've started off in a good way, and we're able to take advantage of some really nice weather right now and get a lot of field work done prior to the weather changing on us. So I don't know, did I have any others? I don't think I had any other slides, right? Okay. Any questions for me?
Mr. Moore.
I just had a couple questions. One, as far as the survey link, I understand it'll be on social media, but can it be on our website as well for people who aren't on social media?
Sure. Yep.
And then second of all, can that drone footage link be available as well?
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Manager.
Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. The non-motorized transportation plan, is it correct that, did I hear that night that if the state of Michigan and that is going to support project regionally, they're going to look to this plan they're creating? So how important is that to your staff for grant writing?
Yeah, it'll be critical. We had myself, I was there, Mike Robbins, Public Works Director, Jason Fate, our city engineer. Kendall had a prior commitment, so he wasn't able to attend, but we had good representation at the meeting, and you are correct. Going forward, when we submit grants, we will need to have things outlined within that plan to really qualify for grant funds within that bucket, if you will. So we'll need to make sure that we have things identified appropriately and priorities identified. So when we are writing grants, we can refer to this document.
Thank you.
Anyone else wish to have questions? Is there anything else, City Manager? No. That being completed, next we'll go to new business, and it's the adoption of it's old business, the discussion of the implementation of a 1% property tax administration fee. I turn over to City Manager Horn.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is, I believe it's my responsibility to look at, kind of uncover lift up all the stones, if you will, literally sometimes looking at revenue options as we put budgets together, as we're going through this 24 budget, looking at, rates, fees and charges. I really taxed our staff to look at what we're doing, the services we provide, how much time we spend on those services. Are we at least covering our costs to provide that? So one thing that, I would like to have a brief discussion, or as however long you want to have it. We are, as state law allows for a 1%, up to a 1% property tax administration fee. City Council, beginning in 2001, had this fee as part of our tax bills. The city is. We are required to collect property taxes on behalf of really 5 other taxing jurisdictions, including we do it for Emmett County Public Schools of Petoskey, Shar M Intermediate School District, North Central Michigan College, and Greenwood Cemetery. So we are processing those property taxes. We collect the fees. We submit checks back to these taxing units for reimbursement. So there's a lot of, if you look at our check register, I think this month even there's the first, I would say probably 30 to 40 items on the check register are checks that we've cut to these taxing units for reimbursement of taxes that we've collected. So it's a significant undertaking that we do for the other taxing units. Certainly, that's kind of why this 1% is allowable in state law. I will say I have asked many of my colleagues across the state, and there's a lot of surveys. Many communities do this. This is pretty consistent. Most are at 1%, some are at 0.5%. But this is pretty consistent across the state. Audrey has shared in your packet, really looking into the region, what communities are doing in our region, and you can see 13 of the 18 units in our region do collect the property tax admin fee. So it's pretty consistent. It is something that when we look at service delivery, and as you know, we are using a contractual assessor. We also want to make sure that we go through on a more regular basis and do inspections on site, looking which is required by the state, that we do this on a regular basis. So we're going to add that to his contract when you consider that renewal. We want to add that piece where we're doing at least a certain percent on-site in the field inspections of all of our parcels within the city. So that adds additional cost as well to what we're trying to do. So this helps us again, helps us recoup the costs for providing those services from our city assessor, from our city attorney. We have tax tribunal cases. We had a few of those this year. Typically, when we do a tribunal case, we also do a current appraisal because we want to go to the tribunal with current data. So that's an added cost that we have as well whenever we have a tribunal case. So we're certainly not looking to pad our revenue numbers. This essentially helps us to cover the services that we're providing currently. So that's on for consideration, and between myself and Audrey, we'd be happy to answer any questions. I asked Audrey to run a analysis, and the 1% admin fee really amounts to just over $300,000 in additional revenue to the general fund. So happy to answer any of your questions.
Also, do you have any questions? Mr. Wagner.
Thanks, Mayor. I'm curious, Shane, Audrey, if this gets approved for this year, is it automatically, does it go on? Is it an annual fee?
It would.
Like 1% per year?
Until, unless it's decided by.
I think certainly it's council's purview to pull it off, at each budget year. I think consistency is important and I think that's the concern with adding it back. If we would have, we always talk about that with setting rates, whether it's water, sewer, electric. Let's do regular rate increases instead of holding rates and then oops, now we need a double-digit rate increase because we haven't addressed it for a number of years. So that's why, in my opinion, you put it on and you keep it on and you let it roll forward. But certainly that's council's decision whether they want to pull it back off.
In 2001, it was voted on. And then it was taken off. What year was that taken off?
I think it was 2014.
So for
And then-
2013, it was on for 12 years, 13 years. It's been off for 10.
14, yeah, it was on for
Yep, there
1
was
year,
the
taken off
next year. Yeah.
15 on, that's correct, but it also covers, the price or the revenue from that. Also would cover posting or postage, tax bill printing, which I think is like 7,000 a year. The cost of our BSNA software, which is our tax program. So there's a lot that revenue would encompass.
Is our general fund looking to be in the negative this year at the end of the year?
It will be without this addition.
Our general fund will be in the hole.
Absolutely.
Hmm.
With the inflation, inflation was 7.9% last year. Just cost up in the projects that were approved in CIP.
Mr. Moore,
In the context of providing millions of dollars in city incentives to developers. And given the economic challenges currently faced by many folks in our community. I do not support imposition of an additional cost to residents. In the form of a property tax administration fee. Thank you.
my biggest concern is those costs, since roughly 50% of the homes are not owner occupied, so that we're talking renters. The cost will be passed on to them. I think people are having a struggle at that. Lower income folks are having a struggle right now to pay their bills as it is, but I take it to council for further discussion. Mr. Shields.
Just thinking out loud here. So right now, the city taxpayers are paying for these services. Through their tax dollars. And if this administrative fee would help cover those costs, would the 1% of a higher property tax is going to be paying more? So would a small increase, and is there a net change of impact to a tax ratepayer?
Such as 0.5%, are you saying?
Nope, echoes. So is there, I mentioned, I inquired with Manager Horn earlier today, if there was, if there was some way to start, set the bottom, start the administrative fee to properties that are maybe at 50,000 taxable value and greater, or some number as a way to, and that's the answer I received. That's not, we can't do that, but that is some, if we could come up with a way to do that, I'd be more in favor of considering this. I think the argument that's not fair is something that we as society can hopefully define. And I think there's room to exploring that. Thank you.
Ms. Walker, you wish to speak?
Sure, Mayor, thank you. Thinking out loud as well, I wouldn't assume that just because a landlord has gotten a 1% administrative fee tacked on to their costs of paying their taxes, that would necessarily like a renter would bear that burden, because you're usually locked into a 6 or a 1 month or 1 year contract, and your rent really can't go up indiscriminately according to that. So I am in favor of a 1% increase, and looking at the spreadsheet of those municipalities and townships that do so, and those that do not, being some of the wealthiest townships in the county. And I am always about being able to cover our costs. So if the cost to administer taxes to these respective to the county and others is $295,000 a year, and that's being absorbed through the general fund budget, and that this would be an offset, bringing in revenue at a 1% increase at $302,000 a year, that feels kind of like a wash to me as well. So I would be in favor of that if that's what staff is recommending, and from what I understand, that is how this is being proposed. Thanks.
I guess looking at your form, I have a question, because I see all of the other, if there's a penalty for late summer fees, all of the others are 3%, and the city of Petoskey is the only one on that list that says 4%. Why are we more punishing for tax collections of late fee penalties? Why are we at 4% and all the other cities are at 3%?
I don't know the answer to that. That would be, I'd have to ask that from, maybe the former director of finance, why that was put
I
in.
think that's something we could correct. I see it as, you want to flush back to what everybody else is doing. Everybody else is at 3% and we're at 4%. And I feel
Yeah. it
we're
was-
hitting people that are hurting for paying their taxes to begin with. Now we're hitting them even more. And I see that as a unfair. That's unfair too. So.
Mhm.
if,
Yes, that could be changed.
With a motion. Okay. Miss Walker,
If there's no more discussion, Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion to approve the 1% administration fee and a revised penalty for summer taxes at 3%, not 4%.
do I have a second at this time?
I'll support.
I have a second from Mr. Wagner. You understand on the voting, the person that makes the motion must vote yes on this motion. The person that seconds it has the option of how they wish to vote. Just to reiterate the Robert's Rules of Order. Does anybody want to make a discussion on this from council? Does the public wish to weigh in on this? If you do, full name, full address. Is there anybody online, Sarah?
No.
I take it.
Zoom link.
Oh, yeah.
Say no.
Oh, you know what? It's probably back at that screen. I have to go and let it in, so. I can't do it from here. Want me to do roll call or?
We'll just hold for a second. Get her straightened out.
Thank you.
You want to speak? Oh, I thought you were reaching to pay.
Mayor, can I ask a question?
Mr. Shields.
So this was on for 1 year and was taken off. It was,
No,
Reinstituted or, let's see.
it was on in 2001,
right,
lasted for 12, 13 years. And was taken off in 2015 by the council. And has been, anytime it has come up in every few years. Council has said no to it.
thank you.
Okay,
Good, Sarah?
I think so, yeah.
Okay, let's do roll and it's Walker and Wagner.
Correct. Walker, yes. Wagner.
Yes.
Demore, nay. Shields,
Yes,
Murphy.
Yes. Next. The acceptance of city manager's report concerning programs and services as proposed by the city's downtown management board for 2024. That would be financed by the levying of the special assessments within the downtown management district's board's territory and adoption of a proposed resolution that would schedule a public hearing for October 16, 2023 to receive comments concerning these recommended programs and services. I'll turn it over to City Manager Horn for his update.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, DMB did promote this. This would be a 5% increase in the assessment. This is the 30th consecutive year that assessments have been levied since the formation of the DMB. So again, this would be a 5% increase to downtown businesses based on the following assessments. So it would be 0.21 per square foot for first floor area, 0.0525 per square foot for floors other than the first floor, and 0.063 per square foot for vacant unapproved lots. So based on those numbers and the available square foot totals throughout each of those designations, this special assessment would produce $118,487,000 or about $6,000 more than the 2023 assessment revenue. In your packet, obviously, this is a fairly long process, so this resolution that's before you tonight is to provide that direction. There'll be a couple more meetings going forward, setting public hearings, looking at the special assessment role, which is included in your packet. So once we receive that approval, we will send notices out and have the public hearings associated with this. So this is the first of, I believe, 3 meetings that we'll have on this particular action. So our downtown Becky is here with us as well. So she obviously has been through this a number of times and is available for questions as well.
I want to say this is her last rodeo with this. And we sure have appreciated you over the years, my dear. Great job. Mr. Moore.
So what was the percentage increase this year? 7%. And then looking at the specific schedule, I see that $107,000 is being shifted, it looks like, from the parking fund to staffing. Can you speak to that for us? Yeah, that's great. Thank you.
I can give you a long answer, a short answer, a medium answer to that, but over the years, the parking fund has all operations have been covered out of the parking fund, all the salaries, the offices, the anything that goes to the office, the rent, the paper, the anything that we charge at all that is paid to anyone that costs our utilities, our overhead, any of that is paid by the parking fund. And that will go forward as we go on to the next year. So you probably know we had a strategic plan done a year ago. And in the strategic plan, they were very wise and gave us some great advice, something that I agree with 100 million%, that the parking office should not be the same as the marketing office. It's very hard to market and cheerlead about downtown, what a great place it is, attract people to come here, visitors and people, new businesses, when you're managing parking, because even though there's a strong need to manage parking, and that can be another subject, it's not popular. So that was the reason that it was recommended that we split. And we did do that this year, and we have a new marketing and promotions director, and we have a new parking, mobility and accessibility director. So they'll be working out of 2 separate offices. The new office for the marketing department is above Chalbella on Lake Street, and we're ordering signage for there, and it will be open very, very soon. It's open now, but it'll be open regular hours very, very soon. So the idea of the DMB knows that all of the programs and service, all of the money for marketing and promotions should come out of the programs and services budget, but there just is not enough money to take that out of there and then do programs and services. If it costs $107,000 a year to pay a staff member and to have the overhead, you'd have $12,000 a year or some to do events and market. Wouldn't even be worth it. So they wanted to be very, very transparent about this year, that they are taking money from the parking fund and moving it over. And this is, Audrey has explained to me that technically that's not how it works, but they're wanting to show that this is what they're doing. So that's why they put it in their budget this year. They showed you that way on their financial sheets this year. They need to work in the years to come to get back to the state where, or get to the state where everything that has to do with marketing promotions is paid out of that fund. Now that will involve a great increase in the special assessment, and they're just not ready to levy that or recommend levying that at this point. So this is their first step in doing this. And I calculated to be about $107,000 a year to do this. And that's why that is coming out of programs and services this year and not coming out of, it is coming out of parking, but it's being moved over.
And that's for the parking office.
That's for the marketing promotions office. The parking office will remain paid for. It's all still going to be paid for out of the parking fund. But this is showing that that's the first step of moving it out of there. That's a goal, is to make sure that that's no longer paid that way.
Then there's also money out of fund balance this
Yes.
year, which was not previously. So could you speak to that also?
Yes, I could. If the costs go up, what they want to do goes up, and there is a fund balance in the special assessment programs and services budget. And they decided they wanted to use some of that this year in order to do the things that they would like to plan to do. The special assessment fund balance grew, I think every year it goes little by little, but it grew especially during COVID and a couple of years after, because we just couldn't do everything that we had in the budget. So it's a good time to try to use that. I mean, you can definitely see down the line that this special assessment to the merchants or to the property owners is going to go up, because it needs to pay for more and more things. Costs go up, everyone wants to do more, and we certainly now have more staff. So that's the goal, is to make it go up, but it's not to make it go up by $200,000 in 1 year or 150 in 1 year.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Becky. Can you tell me what is the cost of the rent for the marketing and promotional office?
We got a special rate because we paid it in one lump sum at the beginning of the year. And this year it's $12,000. I think it goes up to almost 13 next year. So, and it's a below market rate for an upper story space, especially for as many square feet as we have. And I don't know that number right now.
Okay, so it's about $1,100 a month.
Yeah, we paid it annually. Yes,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mr. Shields.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Ms. Goodman. The line item for market analysis study.
Yes.
Analysis study.
Yes.
Can you explain what that is?
We have not ever done one of those, and it's been recommended to us before, and it was in the most recent strategic plan. That's going to tell us where our gaps are, where we're losing sales, who our buyers are, who are all the demographics of who shops here and why people don't shop here. Are we getting the local market? Who are we capturing? And that's greatly needed, especially if you're trying to recruit new businesses, because a new business is going to want to see that and say, okay, well, I'm a shoe store, but I see that you have all of the sales from the surrounding area. You don't need any more sales from shoe stores. So maybe I should be something else, or maybe I shouldn't come here. Or maybe everyone says, oh, you need a bakery, you need a really, really good bakery. So the bakery would come and we have all the data, just emotional data, as well as research that would show that that's what we need.
Great, thanks.
Sure. I'm sorry, I got on a flight. I got up to get on a flight at 2:30 this morning, so I'm not my usual sharp. You weren't, but I'm here.
Let us know when the bakery comes in.
Yeah.
Any other, Mr. Wagner?
Good question, more curiosity than anything. Is there cooperation with the tourism bureau?
We'll go up to
It sounds like they've done some similar analysis.
Yes, they have done, but for the full region.
Got it.
And not for to the market analysis, only for the full region. And their mission is different than ours. Their mission is, it's trite, it sounds, but to put heads in beds. Ours is to bring people that are in the region, either because they're visiting here or because they live here, have second homes here, into downtown to shop and dine.
Perfect. Thank you. Mayor, I'll make a motion
Please.
that the city council accept and review this report and adopt a proposed resolution that would schedule. Well, I think I started too early there. To adopt a proposed resolution that would schedule an October 16 public hearing to receive comments concerning the proposed levying of several special assessments to finance downtown area programs and services in 2024.
Support.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner, a second from Ms. Demore. Any other discussion, council? Then we'll move forward with scheduling the public hearing for October 16th, 2023.
Need a roll call.
Roll, please.
Wagner,
Yes.
Demore, aye, Shields.
Yes.
Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Two items on the agenda. Next is the adoption of proposed resolution of concurrence to the Maple Block Lofts Brownfield plan. And I turn it over to City Manager Shane Horn again.
Thank you, Mayor. So this is, we need to kind of put a dedicated spot for this discussion, Maple Block, discussion on our agenda. It seems like it's been on our agenda for a while here. So this is, looking at the brownfield plan that's in your packet, moving this forward to, the Emmett County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority. So typically, Emmett County would not proceed with, agreeing to a brownfield plan short of the local unit kind of concurring with the plan. So that's the reason why this resolution of concurrence is in front of you. This kind of shows the Emmett County Brownfield Redevelopment Authority that there is support from the local unit for this brownfield plan. As you know, and I've updated you on, we've had very good discussions with Jeff and his team, and certainly appreciate a good back and forth discussion, very fruitful discussions, and I think both sides really want to see this project happen, and they are kind of showing that by being able to work with us. Kind of addressing a few of your concerns as a council. So they have reduced the brownfield TIF length from 30 years to 22 years. And they are committing to keeping those 102 AMI units, at the length, with the length of this brownfield TIF, so for 22 years. So we will be continuing to work on the implementation agreement. I think we're very close. They've addressed, Great Lakes Capital has addressed many of our legal concerns that we've raised to them based on your input. So we're working through that. However, we wanted to move the brownfield plan forward just from a timing standpoint to get it on the agenda for Emmett County to consider. But obviously Mac is here with us. Brad is in the back. And obviously Jeff and Isaac are on the Zoom call. So they are well represented again tonight for any questions or feedback that you could provide or want to provide.
I'd like to make note that on the bottom of the first page, just in case people do not know, it states the brownfield plan includes an allocation of $2 million for the Greenway extension with direct benefits to the community. Could you hit that for just a second?
Yeah, so we would love to see the Greenway extended to this development. Ultimately, we made that commitment in the brownfield plan for the Lofts project. If we can take advantage of state resources that we wouldn't otherwise be eligible to take advantage of without using this tool, we certainly want to be able to do that. And so this provides, over 50% funding for that at the state level to really extend that Greenway to this development when we're ready to do that. And so that obviously this is a multi-year process, getting the Greenway extended. We have some work to do, acquiring some easements past the Lofts project, the Lofts at Lumber Square. I don't want to get my Lofts mixed up here. So certainly we're ready to go on the other one. This one will take a little bit more work, but we've had good discussions as well. But you're right, Mayor, that essentially $2 million of public infrastructure funds would be available to us to make that extension of the Greenway.
Is there a time limit on that? We won't have to wait for 25 years or something.
No, I don't know, Mac, if you could speak to that, but I don't think that would be required. We can certainly.
It's up to you when you make those expenditures.
Okay, all right. I just wanted to point that out because I think, when we talk of this housing, it's not just a benefit of the housing, it's also a benefit of this Greenway, which I'm very much in support of. I hope it goes all the way as far as we can go. So I take it back to City Council for discussion, adoption, questions. Mr. Wagner.
Thanks, Mayor. There was an email that came out from Shane from Andrea Jacobs and Housing North. I think it was later this afternoon, so I'm not sure who's seen it. But it clarifies some things for me. We've all been concerned about who this is serving, what level, what percentage of AMI and so on. And it clarifies for me that there's regional housing activity going on that covers the below 60%, the below 80%. And the number of homes that are needed at this level, it takes care of a piece of that. And transportation was referenced, that's another issue, and of course daycare is and so on, but we've got Andrea here. Can we ask her to, maybe talk to that?
Please.
Other green. Here you go. Yep.
It was already on.
Green.
Okay. Hi, you guys. Andrea Jacobs from Housing North, Emmett County Housing Ready Program Director. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that you had something in front of you that you could read through a little bit, because I know when we start talking statistics, it can
Where is it?
be very easy to tune out, especially in a 3-minute time window.
Could you give us a summary of it?
I think the important thing for us at Housing North, having done the housing needs assessment for the whole region, for Emmett County and for Petoskey specifically, really points to the fact that we are so far behind on our inventory and variety that at this point, every unit of every style, with the exception of maybe the very top of the luxury market, is imperative for us to be supportive. And at just like the discussion earlier tonight, when we're continuing to face rising costs of material, cost of capital, inflation costs, we are facing sort of decisions that require further collaboration than has ever been needed in the past. There isn't that straight development profit equation that existed before, especially in our area. And using a tool like this, though it sometimes feels like a concession or a gift to a developer in general, it's actually, hopefully we can maintain the mentality that it's an investment in the community. And so it sort of will catalyze and regenerate a lot more for not only that local neighborhood, but also the city, in putting forth the priorities like walking, biking, workable, livable communities that we've all prioritized and really valued in our area. So as we further some of those, making sure that even though this is a housing development, the participation from the city is so imperative for that to be successful and viable.
Mr. Moore.
So I'd really like to speak to this because I've become a student of this, this evidence. And I know in the project document from the developer, they reference the 721 rental units that are needed. If you look at page 19 of this report, it does indeed project a gap through 2027 of 721 rental units, just like the developer represented. But if you dig down, 84% of those units, 606 total units in Emmett County of the 721 needed rental units are in the 0 to 80% AMI category.
Repeat that.
84% of the units of the 721 units. This is also in the handout you provided us. So that's 606 total units in Emmett County, 191 of which are in Petoskey, are in the 0 to 80% AMI category. None of the units proposed for the Maple Block development would fill 84% of this evidence-based rental housing based on the developer's representations to date, because we don't have an implementation agreement. Further, only 16% of the housing gap rental units, which is 115 total units in Emmett County, 36 of which are in Petoskey, also on page 19, are in the category of 80 to 120% AMI, which is the range of the Maple Flats or Lofts development as represented by the developer to date. Again, we have nothing in writing. As to those 80 to 120% AMI units, 60 more than the projected need in Petoskey, have already been approved to move forward via the lofts at Lumber Square. Importantly, those units are committed to remain at 80 to 120% AMI, to my understanding, in perpetuity. So at page 19, the report also advises that these housing gap estimates should provide a baseline for establishing priorities within the community. This developer estimates the cost of a Maple Flats one bedroom apartment to be in the range of $1,275 to $1,550 plus per month. And a 2-bedroom from $1,575 to $2,100 plus per month, which are above the current 80 to 120% AMI rates in Emmett County. At page 12, this research suggests that the average gross rent in Petoskey is $996 per month. Therefore, to my mind, the cost to benefit analysis does not add up here. For millions of dollars of total incentive costs approved thus far, we get 0 affordable apartments, quote unquote affordable, in the much needed 0 to 80% category. Let me be clear, my comments are not in any way to be read against this developer. To the contrary, this developer has proposed a project that works for the developer. That's appropriate. However, that development just isn't the development that meets our evidence-based housing needs. I fully support efforts to identify and incentivize development projects that meet our evidence-based rental needs. For those reasons and reasons previously stated on the record at earlier meetings, I will not vote to move forward the brownfield plan this evening. And I thank you for your input, and my comments are offered respectfully.
Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely.
And I would like to give you a moment for rebuttal or.
No, it's not rebuttal, by any sense. I mean,
Well, I'd like to hear what you have to say then. How's that?
well, I think there's a couple of points that I made in my message is that 336 of our units right now in Petoskey are subsidized. So when we talk about those average rents of $900 right now in the community, we have 84 market rate units and 336 subsidized units, and that requires a lot of federal, state, and local participation. And we don't have that, nor can we get that specifically on that parcel because we don't have the walkability and stuff required like we found out with the Lofts project at Lumber Square. It's just too far outside of what those specific regulations require for us to get some of that LIHTC funding and other federal and state support. The other thing I think that's important to talk about is that we have a lot right now sort of potentially and in the pipeline. So the responsibility of hitting some of those large numbers and hitting some of those target markets is not all on one particular development or developer. And if you take a look at the lofts at Lumber Square as an example, that took a heck of a lot of philanthropic donation from the community, a heck of a lot of grant money from the state. The capital stack on that requires, like you know yourselves, the pilot from the city and everything else. It really is a heavy lift to try to make sure that those costs are covered because the equation of building new really doesn't translate into that target affordability. And so another point that I made in the message, just for the general audience that didn't get it, is what we could more functionally and productively focus on to hit those deep affordability targets is our rental preservation of some of our older units and transitioning some of those that have been maintaining market rates despite the fact that they're 20 plus years old, because we don't have any other variety, or we don't have any other inventory to create that transition. So we could be and should be, as a local economy, putting pressure on some of those units and providing preservation on some of those older units so that we can hit that affordability mark without having the build costs from a new build. So I think there's ways to discuss all of the things, the really good points, and it is really valuable to take a look at these needs that we've established. But statistics sort of don't tell the whole story. We need to be thinking about how we can get to those targets and how we can use those priorities and the tools that we have to get there. So
I have a question for you. Define local when in a report, I believe you just gave us. That said 50% of the local workforce do not live in Emmett County.
yeah,
What are you talking about? 50% of local workforce? Is that
50% of the
Petoskey?
workers in Emmett County live outside of Emmett County.
How about Petoskey?
I only referenced that Petoskey is the largest economy in Emmett County, so that translates logically into a good portion of those 6,800 individuals are probably coming in and out of town directly, 5 days a week or more.
Okay. Miss Demore.
I would only follow up your comments, Andrea, to say that your comments about subsidies really speaks to the fact that the need exists so much in that 0 to 80% range.
Mhm. Yeah,
Thank you.
absolutely, yeah.
We just within the last 2 years, I don't know who was on council then, but we approved a pilot for it was the Crestview, I believe it was. A revised pilot, a 25-year pilot, and updated another 25 years. I believe the city of Petoskey really goes out of its way to support those low income housing needs. In year 338, I thought it was 430 or something like this, but irregardless, we are providing a lot of housing opportunities for those in the lower income now that we subsidize through tax breaks, what's called pilot payment in lieu of taxes. So we are very proactive in that. I don't think that this project was meant to address the 60 to 80. I know that that is a big, there are numbers of people in that group that need to have it addressed. I see that as, hopefully, I know Lindsay Walker, Tina Demore, you guys are very supportive of that under 80, that 60 to 80. And I hope that we can push forward a project. If not this big, then let's do smaller projects, but let's push the 60 to 80 project. And I will totally support that with you guys. I like this project only for several reasons. One is we need more housing units. This is a local ability to walk, ride a bike, get a ride to employment in our city. I don't see those opportunities. I also see it as a great opportunity to clean up a horrendous looking mess in visual scourge in Petoskey with the building, the fencing, the yardage. I believe that the only thing that's going to go in there is a big project. I feel the developers we came back with no, this is what we are willing to go with. Drop the 30 to 23 years. They also locked up the 8120 for the 23 years when they really wanted 12 years. The brownfield, they wanted 30, and we've settled, we have negotiated to 23. I feel that they've made a big step to try to work with us. Is it the best deal in the world for us? No, but it's one that I can live with. And at this point, I believe I'm going to be able to support this project. I think it is an opportunity for the city to step forward with housing as well as clean up a dumpy looking area. And therefore, I'm going to support this, and I don't know how council feels about it. I believe it also offers the opportunity for people that are in lower rental areas that may be able to afford a better place to move up, which will allow more places for those on the lower end, the 60 to 80, to possibly get into those other places that are a bit cheaper. I just think it's a win-win all the way around for us. Do I like the cost of it? No, but I can live with the cost. They have compromised. They've tried to meet. We said no once, twice, and they've come back again. So with what we have proposed, so I'm willing to move this forward. But council, do you have any comments you wish to speak, Mr. Wagner?
A comment and then a motion. The comment being, I believe, in addition to people moving in and out of our county and the local area, and I believe there's a market driver to all of this. Ultimately, even if they're holding places for 122 or 80 to 120, if those don't fill up, they're going to have to rent them to lower or market rates. So, and I think the requirement is 120% or below by Lansing. I have that right, Nick. So, my sense is the market's going to drive a lot of this. It's going to move people in and out, and so I want to make a motion to approve the resolution of concurrence for the Maple Blocks Law Brownfield Plan.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Wagner and second from Mr. Shields. Now we have opportunity for discussion. Mr. Moore.
If I could, I just have some questions either for Mac or whoever's online. So for the first time, maybe it's just me, I'm seeing Maple Block Lofts LLC instead of Maple Block Flats. So I'm just curious, is this a new limited liability corporation? What's the relationship to Maple Block Flats that was previously identified as the developer in the initial implementation agreement?
I can probably respond to that. That's my misnomer for the piece. I think there were discussions about the flats. And I used that name early on, but it is, and Jeff can correct me if I'm wrong, Maple Block Lofts LLC is the entity, is the official entity.
So Maple Block Flats was the LLC that was in the initial implementation agreement as the developer.
I believe we've corrected that. Jeff, you want to respond to that? The name of the entity.
Yes, good evening. Thank you all for your time tonight. I believe that is correct, Mac. It is Flats.
It wasn't prior, was it?
Yeah, is it Flats or Lofts?
It's Lofts, I believe, Jeff.
Yeah, we can confirm that, but there's no, to answer your question, they're single purpose entities. So it's just our entities that we create for each individual project.
There was, my understanding is, we had discussed flats. We used flats in the early conversations. There was no at that time. And then the LLC was formed. My belief, I believe that it's Maple Block Lofts now is the official name. So I apologize for that confusion. It's not like there was one entity created for one thing or another, as I understand. So.
Correct.
Okay, and then just some questions on the. Yeah. So at the proposed 22-year duration, Mac, what is the total tax increment financing or TIF ask from the city general fund? And where do I find that number in the plan or the attachments?
It would be under table 3, actually, the next table.
So that table at the top still says 30-year, which confused me.
That may have been my mistake that I didn't correct that.
So this is the 22?
Yes, and I do that for a 30-year duration is the maximum eligible. So yes, these numbers are for 22 years.
For 22 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so where's the number here then? The tax, the TIF?
Top right, City of Petoskey, the total capture is 27 million.
$27,205,861.
And the city share is 25% of that, or 6.6 million.
Okay. Got it. And then at the proposed 22-year duration, what's the total TIF ask, including all city revenues like operating fund, right-of-way fund, library, refuge cleanup, and where do I find that? now?
That's all aggregated. There's an earlier spreadsheet called the capture table, table 2.1.
Is that here?
That's kind of an ugly table too,
Okay.
as well.
And
The
where,
table 2.1 has all of the captured by year, separated by taxing jurisdiction, including all of those sub units as well.
okay, and what is that number?
I don't know if I've totaled that. You know, the city is aggregated, all the city operating millages is aggregated, that 6.6 number. And I mean, I can total them up and break them down if you want for each of those items.
Yeah, I'd like to have that. If you can't do it on the spot, it's completely fine. I just thought there would be a place on that table where it would be listed.
Perhaps I'll impress you with my spreadsheet skills here.
Yeah, implementation.
So it's about 2.6 million of the city general operating.
Yeah, it's 2.6 general, all the city funds, and that's the 30-year was 3.8, so we're down to 2.6. This is general fund. All city funds was just over 7 million, that's down to 4.7.
So I was just curious to hear, I saw what you sent us, Shane. I was curious to hear what their numbers were, because
Okay.
I didn't see them in here.
I
That's
didn't
not your
separate them.
fault. There's a lot to see here, but I'm just would ask to hear what, if your numbers align with.
Yeah, that's exactly the number that I came up with for the
2.6.
city operating, the city general operating fund.
Okay,
Yep.
and then the total TIF ask with all in city, county, school funds, where is that number? Is that the total capture on
And table 3,
table 3?
yes, that's state as well. And you'll see there's a local taxes total and a state taxes total as well.
The TIF tables that you have, do you have the formulas in them so you can see the totals all the way to the right side of the column? They're totaled up for you, the sums. You want to refer back to that?
And then Matt too, can you speak on referencing page 10 of your plan, which is page 99 of our packet? And I think table 2.1, page 2 also. If the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority wants a local brownfield revolving fund post obligation contribution, how much does that increase those previous numbers? And is that only out to 5 years, or maybe you could just speak to that?
Yeah, in actuality, the plan as we were presented originally doesn't pay off in 30 years. So all of those aggregated expenses doesn't pay off in 30 years. We thought that depending on some things, I mean, the budgets are conservative, taxes may be higher. And we included in the original plan that if the payoff is prior to that time, that there could be some capture in the local brownfield fund. With the fund kind of truncated at 22 years, there's still about $22 million of unreimbursed expenses. Or so, 17 for the developer and 2.5 for the city. And then, so as a result, that won't be, there won't be an opportunity for the local brownfield fund in this case. With the.
So that 5-year extension potential would not occur.
That's correct. It has to happen within the 30-year total duration, and there has to be revenues, in most cases, it's already got to be paid off. So if something amazing happens and all those eligible activities are paid off and there's still some time in that 22 years, there could be a local brownfield fund. It appears unlikely.
But that local brownfield would have to be spent in the city limits.
City dollars have to be spent in the city.
But it can't happen.
I don't believe it will happen.
Okay.
If the economy ended up being 10% increases across the board for 20 years, yeah, there'd probably be money there.
If Jeff pays a heck of a lot more taxes than he wants to, so, but at least we worked with the assessor in terms of what those property taxes are anticipated to be.
So what is the total developer brownfield TIF reimbursement? Thank you.
Good questions.
I know where it is. Sorry. I don't know if I separated this, but the total approved for the developer will be 21 million or so. There leaves a balance of 7 million that would be anticipated to be unreimbursed. These are all estimates. So the actual reimbursement would be in the $14 million range. Principal and interest for environmental, non-environmental, and housing development costs.
So why is it 21 minus 7? I don't understand.
The 21 is the total approved eligible activities, but because the period was truncated to 22 years, it will leave a balance of $7 million.
Okay,
That's unreimbursed.
got it. Thank you for your patience with all the questions.
And I did leave those costs in there, they're actual costs, if things change. You know, that there's higher taxes and lower costs and things of that nature. But, you know, by the action tonight, you're limiting the tax capture period.
Yeah, I already saw number movement between the last one of these you gave us in August
Yes. there was
and
some
this one,
reductions. Yeah.
and this one here.
Yeah.
And then one other question for you. When I look at table 2.2, let me find my question. And because I'm not certain. So when I'm looking at this, and I'm looking at the developer reimbursement and the city reimbursement, and I'm looking at the percentages, okay. In August, that developer reimbursement was 84% and the city was 16%. And now they've shifted just a little bit. Now the developer is 83.4% and the city is 16.4%. Is that a reflection of moving from 30 to 22?
No, that's the pro rata share of eligible activities,
Mhm.
the 21 compared to the 4.
So what generated the movement from August until now?
Some reduced costs for special foundations. We got some better numbers on the construction side. And there was one other bigger ticket item that I can't
Think about it. You need it.
recall.
Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah.
How big was the big ticket item?
I will have it for you. I believe it was grading and land balancing, not a big ticket, well, relatively speaking. A few hundred, $500,000, I believe, reduction.
Oh, that's a big ticket.
And on percentage basis, but yeah, it's big, but
Vapor mitigation.
$50 million. With mitigation, I left there, actually. We're hoping that we might be able to reduce the opportunity. A lot of sampling is going on now to test out. And I'll just explain briefly is that there's these screening levels that happen in soils that may indicate vapor could come into buildings. But we're doing sampling right now that actually takes gas samples and see if that vapor actually comes in, if those vapors are coming in. We've had pretty good results that in a number of places, it's not an issue. So we may be able to reduce that back. So we're hoping that will reduce back.
How many tons of waste have to be pulled out? How many tons of waste are being taken out?
Yeah, right now we're estimating about 10,000 tons.
10,000 tons.
For excavation, 7,000 cubic yards. We're doing some additional investigation to kind of weigh that down, but that's a really rough estimate.
If the brownfield comes in, this process comes into a lot less. Explain how that is handled.
Yeah, the costs are only reimbursed on the actual expenses.
Okay.
So this is like a budget document. And then you go through claims and accounts process, basically documenting all of that information, Brownfield Authority to go through that and determine that maximum eligible activity obligation. And that would be the point at which you reimburse those costs. That would set that for from 21 million to 1933.25 or something like that.
the state had, I think they were passing or have not passed or close to it, where brownfield could be utilized for housing, is that correct?
Yes, there was yep, there was a new act included, and there are some dollars in allocations.
Would housing requirements on this, on the TIF part of the housing, is that available to access the money if it's, instead of 21, there's 19 million, $2 million left over, will that be able to be utilized in the housing part of the TIF?
Yeah, we actually did include an allocation in there for the housing.
I knew that, but I'm asking for
the 21. And that goes, so that sets the maximum value. There's ability to do some line item adjustments. There's some limitations to that, but so that could be done as well.
Okay. Ms. Demore,
I'm sorry.
it's okay, ask away.
I think this question is more for the city manager. I'm not sure. But at the last meeting, we discussed the Eagle testing on the property, which was an issue raised by the Watershed Council having to do with contamination migration. And I'm inquiring about the status of that testing, which I think is very important to move forward as expeditiously as possible.
Yeah, that's likely gonna have to be a one-on-one response that I have with each of you based on our conversations with Eagle. John, Colangeli, and myself had a conference call with Eagle. They're recommending that we delay the sediment testing until the soil is removed or in process of being removed, then do the soil testing under the river at that time. And there's some other reasons for that in an open session, I'm not comfortable sharing necessarily. So that'll be one-on-one conversations that I'll need to follow up with you on.
I concur with the city manager on those ideas and that discussion at this point. Mr. Walker, Mr. Wagner.
That's okay. So my motion was to approve the concurrence with the Maple Black Bluffs Brownfield plan. Tina brought up a question about is it blocks or flats, and it appears it's both. Throughout all the resolutions, I'm seeing them titled as lofts. But then there's reference to Great Lakes Capital Maple Black Flats LLC throughout. Does that need to be edited? Are we approving clerk Beck to go through and make those edits, or are you making those edits? Or
I'd have to make those edits. I thought that I kind of tried to do that and make that consistent. That was a comment that I had. Evidently, I wasn't successful. So whatever that entity is named, we'll name it and have it consistent.
For the motion, I'd like in the motion, I'd like it expressed that the name of this project will be henceforth this for all documents.
I was able to check our LLC documents during this call. It is Maple Block Flats, so apologize for the confusion.
So we are going back to Maple Black Flats, is that correct, Jeff?
Yes, sorry about that. It's Maple Block Flats LLC. That is our legal entity.
So what I'm asking for, if I do have an emotion, that it includes all documentation, i.e. directives, names are Maple Block Flats. Did you make a motion, Mr. Wagner?
I did, yeah, Derek seconded.
Would you like to make amendments to that?
Yes, so the motion is to support concurrence for the Maple Block. It says flats brownfield plan, and to have that recorded and changed appropriately throughout the documents.
I still support.
You support Mr. Shields, thank you. All right, now we'll go to city council comments, and I'll start with.
We're still discussing.
We have, no, after I get a motion, a second, we will go to discussion. Ms. Walker.
Council, right end of the meeting.
It's okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Ms. Walker.
So I would be remiss if I didn't ask, because I've been thinking about this a lot. Is there any way, and I don't know if this would be towards you, Mac, or for you, Mr. Smoke. Is there any way that as you proceed forward with negotiating a price on the purchase of the property, that you could ask the current owners to waive $1 million, which is the cost of the soil remediation and the contamination that they incurred over 125 years? Is that something that you can actually like negotiate in a real estate deal? Could you put the question out there to ask them if they would consider a sale price that would include the cost of the removal of the contaminated soil?
I believe they've met today. Is that correct?
I know it sounds like a very radical question, but I'm really curious if that's something that could be negotiated in the context of a price of the purchase of the property.
Jeff?
Sorry, I was muted. It's certainly, so we have our purchase agreement with her set at the price that you all have seen. And so that is set. Of course, we can certainly go back and ask, and we need, just to be totally frank with you all, we need additional concessions and incentives to still make this a reality. I mean, just as an example, MISTA is requiring us to put a 3-sided concrete wall on the neighbor's property because there's elevated fuel tanks there. So that's a requirement for MISTA, and that's going to be, we don't have a number yet, but in the neighborhood of $200,000 to $300,000 alone, just for that 3-sided wall. So yes, we can absolutely ask to have a lower purchase price. I'm not sure that'll be granted. We can't, make her do anything, but it's something that we can certainly, she has been very patient with us. We've been at this for over a year now, but definitely appreciate your question and can certainly, work on that.
Mr. Fields has a question.
Mr. Smoke, was there in that purchase price, was that based off of a land appraisal, a property appraisal?
That was based on their asking price and enough time. I knew this was going to be a heavy lift. So what we required was, at least a year of time to make this work. We're obviously over that period now. So that's what it took into account. There was some other market, this was over a year ago. I can't recall exactly. We did not have an appraisal. I think we have comps on other parcels, but I don't believe there was an appraisal yet, on that. I'm sure there's one out there that she might have had done prior, but I don't have one. It was just based on market comps and other land values.
Thank you.
Any other question, Council? Mr. Shields again?
Yeah, so rerouting a little bit here, I wanted to thank Mr. Moore for highlighting the need, the housing need. I do see, when I read the data, I also think there's an argument with the data for the need for housing generally. I mean, the 100% occupancy rate of every apartment they inventory speaks with data to the need for housing generally. And so I want to read this prepared comment. I'm very much in favor of adopting the proposed brownfield plan. I don't come to this decision lightly. There are obvious tension points, potential burdens to permitting this project without increasing the tax base for 22 years and the cost of the apartment still being high for many people. However, the benefits outweigh these concerns, in my opinion. Inviting 200 new households to our community will strengthen it. It's kind of similar to what Ms. Jacobs was saying. Not only will it bring more workers and consumers, but it will bring more ideas, life experiences, passions, people that will strengthen our community. We will clean up a blighted and continually valuable parcel along the Bear River. We will create a walkway along the river that everyone can utilize, and will potentially reduce the impact of sprawl. The development of our rural and scenic places located just minutes outside the city, where we can concentrate development within the city. Any change is risky and, inflow of chaos into the system, but sitting back and waiting for the perfect development is also risky. So I think we've been proactive, and this deal is a good next step in doing that. And frankly, we are seeing luxury houses being created now. So there's the cost to create a new housing is exceptionally high. And so that is motivation. And so the motivation to see housing at levels that are not just luxury is my motivation in part for supporting this. Thank you.
Mr. Moore.
I'll just make a closing statement as well. This is round 4 of city incentives to the developer based upon developer asks and developer timelines. You heard this evening the amount of money, the total asked by the developer. Just like 2 weeks ago when we last met, there's no legal agreement in place with the developer regarding AMI, average median income percentages, for the proposed apartment units, and there is no legal agreement in place with the developer regarding the duration or number of apartment units at which AMI level. Per this week's proposed resolution, these incentives are awarded based upon a representation by the developer that 50% of this development will be quote unquote workforce housing, with the new proviso contained in our agenda materials this week that quote, if there is a vacancy for more than 6 months, there would be flexibility to reallocate to 120%. A reminder that 120% AMI per the developer is at or near market rate. Neither the city council agenda memo referenced today, nor the resolution bind the developer regarding AMI units, their allocation and or duration. Only a contract binds the developer. And while 3 incentives have been awarded with another pending this evening, there is no consensus or legal agreement in place securing what the city would obtain or gain in return. The ultimate question for me remains, will the city be incentivizing affordable housing for a duration of time that warrants the use of finite public funding? Thank you.
I'd like to get some answers for you for that. Shane, would you like to speak? If not, I'll go. to
Are you
Jeff, but-
speaking on the implementation?
On the yes.
Yes,
And there'll be an implementation agreement following this piece of it.
yeah, we need to keep moving things forward. There's deadlines, there's grant deadlines, there's other things that we're trying to accomplish with this multifaceted project. So if I ever thought that we were on different islands with this implementation agreement, I would not ask you to even consider this brownfield that's in front of you, brownfield plan. We're very close. I think they've tried to address your concerns. Jim, city attorney, and myself had a really good meeting with them and really fine-tuned some of the legal concerns that were addressed. I think we just, from a timeliness standpoint, wanted to get this brownfield plan in front of you. I believe that we'll be ready for the implementation agreement by the next meeting. We're that close to having this in front of you, but that language will be addressed in that agreement.
Anyone else wish to speak? Mr. Shields?
I just remember one good question from our last meeting from a resident or a member of the community. Asked, so the income-based apartments, if someone's income goes up, can they be kicked out of their apartment if their income goes up?
No, that's a great question. And so we did talk to MSHDA last week and I asked them that direct question and they said no. So they will not be kicked out. They're allowed to stay in there. Now, there is a webinar that MSHDA is putting on. We can forward the link on Friday for anyone that's interested in learning how they're going to, have us implement that AMI commitment that we are making. So, they're honestly still fine tuning it. And this is a brand new program. So they're working out the kinks in it, but there is a webinar that MSHDA is putting on this Friday that people can log into to kind of understand. And that's kind of the policy that we're going to need to follow in terms of how it's implemented is through what MSHDA publishes.
How do we get that website?
I can send it on to you.
City manager will send that website out and we'll post it on city website, please, with Sarah.
I'll send it to you. Yeah,
But also post it. So
we don't normally do that, but
I think it's important for this $50 million project. Let people see where we're at. I think that's just keeping everything above board. I think it's a fair way to go. Ms. Walker.
Thanks. Just to answer a little bit of Derek's question, I know that when you live in rental housing, you have to recertify your, especially if you have any kind of subsidy attached to your unit, or if you have a subsidized unit, or if it's supposed to be under a certain, you have to recertify your income every 6 months to a year. So that's how management companies usually stay abreast of that, and that's how they keep track of, like, does this resident of said unit qualify still? And it's either every 6 months or every year with the fluctuation of income.
And that's the kind of detail that would be for a light tech housing development. And so Mishta is saying that they're guiding us, this is light tech light. So there will be an income verification, obviously, in year one, and then they're going to provide guidance on how that looks going forward.
Anything else, council? Does the public wish to weigh in on this?
Again, Nikki Bevitt, and speaking from several hats, actually, from this perspective. So to the last comment on subsidies and recertifications and Mishta. So this is such a new program. So from the statewide housing partnership standpoint right now, which is a direct executive order from the governor to help Mishta understand how, as a state, we are going to work through the housing crisis, because it is a statewide crisis. That's one of the first things that we started talking about earlier this year, was how do we look at this LIHTC light from an income verification standpoint, because there's a lot of concern from that, not just for developers, but municipalities as well. And to Jeff's point, they are working through that, but it's not as LIHTC bound. So if somebody starts to make more money, they're not out on the street. That's not the goal of what Mish is doing. There's a lot of work through that needs to happen on this, and the statewide partnership as well as the regional housing partnerships are just continuing to cycle the data throughout the 15 regions in the state, showing that each community is different. What each community needs is different. How a community acts on it is up to us here individually. I can also tell you that one of the things that has become the overarching theme of not just the statewide housing plan, but also the Office of Rural Development, which is going to officially be the Office of Rural Prosperity, the Michigan Growth Council, all of these new things that have been enacted in the last couple of years to help our state address what we know is probably one of our number one concerns from a long-term economic, and that's our population. The biggest hurdle everyone keeps talking about is housing. And when we're talking about attracting new people because of this development, I also want to remember that we can retain. One of the biggest problems Emmett County has right now, and I say this not in any ageist way, but is the fact that we are the fastest aging county in the state. And that is a problem for us. And so it isn't just about recruiting, it's about retaining. And there is a flex that happens when you look at developments. Yes, as somebody who deals with housing every day in all shapes and sizes, I want to see every single AMI met, but I'll take what we have if that starts to give us the ability to start to address that retention piece too. Because any more businesses that contact us and say, I'm losing another employee because they are getting kicked out of their long-term rental and there is nothing for them to move to. So it's not even an income issue. It's where do they go? So when we can start being able to flex and start to move, this is a big piece for us. Do I want those 0 to 80%? Absolutely, I do. That's another battle. That is absolutely positively another battle with the state to talk about making sure that our communities have that LIHTC availability, that we don't lose something like Lofts at Lumber Square completely because it didn't meet LIHTC requirements and standards and walkability. And we got a little leeway this year with the QAP, a little bit more with how rural is considered walkable, how rural is considered eligible. We've got a lot of work to do. In the meantime, while we work on that, something like this is a piece that helps us start to move the needle. And what we really need in this community right now is to stop losing population that is our key workforce population and start helping our businesses meet that number one hurdle, which is housing. And so if we can start to move it just a little, and by just a little, 200 units is kind of a really big move, but it is part of what we can do. And I do trust that our city staff has done a phenomenal job working with a developer who's still coming back to the table and still meeting your concessions. And I want to have all the faith in the world that they will continue to come to an agreement that allows us to at least keep some piece of that need in line. And I thank you as a council for your patience and your willingness to listen over and really understand just how this goes. These are new tools. That's what's exciting. A 30-year brownfield is a very new tool. Being able to access that, the state worked very hard, Housing Michigan and many others, the Northern Michigan Chamber Alliance, and the list goes on, worked so hard to start to put these tools into your places and spaces to be able to say, how do we want to develop in our community? And I think that your community vision is huge, and I appreciate it. And the location and the green space and all the things we can do. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. Is it something that we don't have right now? And I hope allows us to start to open up more space for that under 80%. Absolutely, because we know that is a key component of our workforce and they need to be represented too. So thank you for all your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to speak to council at this time? No. No, no online. Last call for public comment. There being none, I go to City Clerk Beck for roll.
Wagner,
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Demore. Nay. Wow, Walker. Yes. Murphy.
Yes. Motion passes 4-1. Next on the agenda is the adoption of a proposed resolution to rescind resolution number 2327, and I take it to City Manager Horn for that.
Thank you, Mayor. This is just kind of a housekeeping issue and concern that was raised. We discussed this back in March of this year about how we as the city could walk alongside the City Park Grill project in with elevated construction costs and what that could look like conceptually. In my mind, we've addressed that tonight with your actions on approving the Oprah. And so one suggestion was just to rescind this resolution that was a little open-ended and a little maybe confusing, just to rescind it and move forward with the action that was taken tonight.
Mr. Moore.
So moved.
I'll second the motion.
I have a motion from Mr. Moore, a second from Ms. Walker. Any other discussions? I go to City Beck Clerk for roll.
So Demore. Aye. Walker.
Yes.
Shields.
Yes.
Wagner.
Yes.
Murphy.
Yes. Now, City Council, do we have any more? That's it. City Council comment. Now I'll go with Ward 2, Mr. Shields.
Thanks, Mayor. I will bring up, I brought this up in the past, and it's time to bring it up again. The city owns 700-800 acres of rural areas outside of the city limits. And I would love to have Director of Parks and Rec give us a presentation on how we're managing that. And encourage council to consider that the sustainable management of those forests as a potential green revenue source for the city, potentially as we look for supporting our Parks and Recs department.
Okay. Ward 3, Mr. Wagner.
No comment. Thanks, Mayor.
Ward 1, Mrs. Demore.
I would just follow up on Mr. Shields' comment there that some time ago we talked about taking a trolley tour, like of all the parks and that sort of thing. And I know we've been busy, but for me, I think that would be really beneficial. There are many things I don't know about, and I think that would be helpful. So just an adjunct suggestion. And then finally, a sincere thank you to the Women's Resource Center for their many, many years of service to our community. Much appreciated their contribution. Thank you.
Ms. Walker.
Thank you, Mayor. I do have one comment. I know that like many of you over the years, both here on City Council as well as the Planning Commission, we have a certain architect in our community that with due diligence and every opportunity he gets, he creates his own architectural conceptual designs, prints them out, makes 19 copies of every plan and designs, and David Troutman submits these to the planning commission and to city council. And I happened to see him at an event at Hazardous Waste Collection on Saturday. And he said, "Do you know, Lindsay Walker, I send about 19 of those copies out every time, and I've never heard back from one person." And I said, "David Troutman, I have saved every single one of your architectural renderings. I have a file, I look at them, and I appreciate you contributing whatever creative force and vision that you have for our community. And even though you might not be recognized by those individuals, I can speak for myself that I save your drawings and I appreciate the effort. This shows a community and a person embedded in our community that really cares about this place. And so I just wanted to recognize him and those efforts that he makes. And I have saved all these architectural renderings because you never know what plans may follow through. And these might be a plan for the future. So thank you.
As mayor, I'd like to say a couple of things. Number one, Ms. Walker, I asked that you get his address to me. I think we talked about before. I have no way of contacting this gentleman with a phone or.
Oh, I know where he lives because he's a recycler and he's.
Would you get me his address and phone? I would like to send a card of thanks from the city for all of his input to us, if you would do that. I attended Friday, or what day was that? Sunday afternoon, 5 till 6:30. Crooked Tree had the 50th anniversary. It was a big success. Our city manager was at one door passing out cider and donuts. I thought it was great. I got to attend. I had one more thing I wanted to say. Today I spent most of the day up in the woods and swamps looking for the lost gentleman. I ask you to give prayers and thoughts, send good energies to the workers, or at least got 50, 60, 80 people spread out going places through the woods looking. It's a real tragedy. So I ask that you give some prayers and thoughts and send some energies to the family. And to Dave Moffat. It's what a sad situation, almost tears. I would be in no further business to come.
Say one thing.
Please.
I will be sending out another round of meeting requests. It's becoming a little challenging finding consensus on a date for the STR between council, between legal, John, our planner. So I'm trying to juggle all that. The feedback I've gotten from council is you do not want to have a work session ahead of our regular meetings, which I certainly understand that. So the pool, or the dates that I sent out originally, I don't have consensus on. I don't have a quorum, and this is a discussion I want everybody attending.
Can we get right now, take out our.
Well, the problem I have is I also have to have our attorney, I have to have John's calendar.
Why don't you get 2 dates from us and try to tell them what we're doing?
So one option is the attorney has availability on the 23rd, potentially. Does that date line up with anyone? Is that a potential opportunity?
23rd is a Monday. It's the 4th Monday of October. Are you good with that? Okay.
No, but I can.
You can make it work. I appreciate that. We owe you.
And obviously I need to check with.
And is there one more date that you want to throw at us that we can say yes or no? I find this is better than this zipping back and forth. At least you can get 5 of us in agreement, right? And I'm not gonna.
Yeah, we have a couple things happening this month that we obviously have. Some of us are attending the MML convention in Traverse City. Some of us are attending the Housing North, the end of the month, 25 and 26, 27, sorry. MML's the week before. So obviously we have Halloween.
Well, but there's the 30th. Which is the 5th Monday of the month.
And we have, I hate to even say this, because I know someone's gonna throw something at me, but Saturday mornings.
How about Sunday afternoon? After the Lions football game at 4 o'clock? No? Okay, why don't you get with those two and see if those guys can.
So the 23rd sounds like a.
23rd.
Okay, thank you.
Then now I get to do this then, otherwise you guys are gonna stay here until we work this sucker out. But if right, no further